I didn't believe in haunted places before that weekend. Even now, I don't know if I believe in ghosts exactly, but I know something was there. And whatever it was, it didn't want to see us. We booked the place on Airbnb on a Wednesday night. It was one of those last-minute decisions, just needing to get away. Work had been grinding me down, and Megan had been saying for weeks that we hadn't done anything together in a while. She's the one who found the listing, and she suggested it. A small lake house on Lake of the Ozarks. 2 bedrooms, a private dock, tucked back in a quiet cove away from the main channel. The pictures showed still water, fog rolling over the lake in the mornings, tall trees pressing in close around the property. It looked peaceful, maybe a little too peaceful, but at the time, that's exactly what we wanted. We got there on a Friday, just before sunset. The drive-in was longer than I expected. The main road slowly gave way to narrower ones, then gravel, then this winding stretch that felt like it cut straight through the dense woods, with no signs of anything nearby. I remember saying it felt like we'd taken a wrong turn. Megan just laughed and said, "That's the whole point." The house came into view suddenly, like it had been hiding behind the trees until the last second. It was smaller than the photos made it look. It had a dark wood exterior, a sloped roof, big windows facing the lake, though they reflected more of the trees than the water. And then there was the dock, a narrow wooden walkway that stretched out into the cove. The water around it was still, almost unnaturally still. No ripples, no boats, no anything. Just completely flat. I don't know why, but that was the first moment I felt something off. Like the place wasn't abandoned, but it wasn't welcoming either. Inside, everything looked normal. Clean, recently updated. The faint smell of wood and something like old fabric that had been sitting too long in a closed space. We unpacked, opened a couple beers, and sat out on the back deck as the sun dropped behind the trees. And that's when it got quiet. Not peaceful quiet, the kind where you notice what's missing. No insects, no frogs, no distant boat engines. Just the occasional creak of wood as the house settled. Megan noticed it too, and she asked if I heard how quiet it was. And I told her yeah, but I said it didn't bother me. But the truth was, it did. The first night wasn't too bad, just a bit uneasy. We went to bed around midnight. The bedroom faced the lake, and even with the curtains drawn, there was this faint glow coming through, the moonlight reflecting off the water. I woke up sometime in the early morning. No idea what time it was, but I knew something had pulled me out of my sleep. At first, I thought maybe it would be a sound, but then I realized it was the feeling that someone was standing in the room. Not moving, not breathing, just there, a presence. I didn't open my eyes right away. I don't know why, instinct maybe. I just laid there, completely still, trying to listen. And after a few moments, I didn't hear anything. But the feeling didn't go away. It got stronger. Like whoever or whatever was there was getting closer. I finally opened my eyes. The room was empty, but the door to the bedroom was slightly open, and I was sure that I'd closed it. Saturday started normal enough. Sunlight made everything feel less intense. We even joked about how creepy it felt the night before, but neither of us really laughed that hard. There was this quiet understanding that something had been off. We spent most of Saturday outside, sat on the dock for a while. The water was dark, almost black in certain spots, like it dropped off deeper than it should. And at one point, Megan asked me if it felt like we were being watched, and I told her no, but I didn't look at her when I said it. But things changed that afternoon. We were inside making lunch when we heard it. Footsteps, not in the house, but above us, like someone walking across the roof. Slow, careful steps. We both froze. I remember Megan looking at me and saying it was probably a branch or something, and I didn't respond, because it didn't sound like a branch. It sounded like it had weight, like something pacing back and forth. That night ended up being worse. We didn't say it out loud, but we both felt it. The house didn't feel empty anymore. Every room felt occupied, not by something you could see, but something that knew you were there. We kept the lights on longer than we wanted to admit. Eventually, we went to bed, but neither of us fell asleep right away. I woke up again, with the same feeling as before, but stronger this time. It was heavier, like the air itself had weight to it. And this time, I opened my eyes immediately. The door was open wider, and I swear, I saw something move past the doorway. Not clearly, just a darker shape against the already dark hallway. I sat up. I listened, but I didn't hear anything. Then Megan grabbed my arm, extremely tight. She didn't say anything at first. Then she asked me, very quietly, if I had just been standing in the hallway. And we didn't sleep after that. On Sunday morning, we decided we were leaving early. It didn't matter that we had another night booked. We both agreed without really discussing it. We just packed our things, quickly and quietly, like we didn't want to draw attention to ourselves. But before we left, Megan said she wanted to take one last look at the lake. I didn't want to, but I went with her. We walked down to the dock. The air felt wrong, thick and still, like the entire cove was holding its breath. Megan stopped halfway down. She was staring toward the end of the dock, and I followed her gaze, and that's when I saw it. There was a woman standing at the very edge, facing the water, completely still. Long black dress hanging straight down, unmoving despite the faint breeze. Her hair was dark, hanging forward just enough that I couldn't see her face. She hadn't been there when we walked out. I know that for sure. There was no way we wouldn't have seen her. Megan whispered that something was out there. Her voice sounded wrong, tight, like she already knew. I said we should go back inside, but neither of us moved. Because in that moment, the woman tilted her head, just slightly, like she had heard us. And then slowly, she began to turn. I didn't wait around to see her face. I grabbed Megan's arm and pulled her back toward the house, fast. We didn't run, but it was very close. We got inside, grabbed the last of our things, and left right away. We didn't lock the door. We didn't look back. And as we drove away, I checked the rearview mirror, just once. The dock was still visible through the trees, and I could see a dark shape at the end of it, standing exactly where she had been, watching us leave. We never reported anything to Airbnb. We didn't leave a review, and we didn't try to figure out what happened. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that cove, that still water, and the way she just stood there, like she had been waiting for us to show up. Living in a van teaches you a few things pretty quickly. One of them is how to be alone. The other is how to recognize when you're not. I'd been on the road full-time for a little over a year when this happened. My van, a converted Mercedes-Benz Sprinter, was set up better than most apartments I'd lived in. Bed in the back, small kitchenette, solar setup, even a compact shower rig. But still, it wasn't perfect. The bathroom situation especially. It worked, but it wasn't something you ever looked forward to using. So every couple of weeks, I'd book a place on Airbnb. Nothing fancy, just somewhere I could reset, do my laundry, take a long, hot shower without worrying about water tanks or battery levels. Feel normal again for a couple of days. I found the cabin late one night while parked just outside of Woodland Park. It was exactly what I usually looked for. A small, one bedroom, one bathroom, tucked back in the woods. The listing mentioned it sat on a few acres of private land, surrounded by forest, no neighbors in sight. The photos showed a simple structure, dark wood, slanted roof, a single porch light casting a warm glow against the trees. Something about it felt quiet. The drive up the next afternoon was slow and winding. The higher I got, the denser the trees became. Pine trees mostly, tall and close together, like they were trying to block out the sky. By the time I turned onto the final dirt road, I hadn't seen another car in at least 15 minutes. No houses, no signs, just forest. The cabin appeared without warning. One second it was trees, the next it was just there. I parked my van beside it and just sat there for a minute, my engine off, no music, no anything. And that's when I noticed it. There was no sound, no wind through the trees, no birds, no insects. It was the same kind of silence I'd felt before in places that didn't feel right, the kind that makes you aware of your own breathing. I told myself I was just overthinking it, but I grabbed my bag, walked up to the door, I unlocked it. Inside, the air felt stale, not dirty, just unused, like the space had been sitting closed for too long. The layout was simple: a living area, a small kitchen, bedroom off to the side, and a bathroom in the back. Everything looked clean, but it didn't feel lived in, more like staged. I dropped my stuff, opened a couple of windows, and tried to shake it off. I took a long shower, I did my laundry, my normal things, and by the time evening rolled around, I almost felt better. Well, almost. It started getting dark around 7:30, and just like that, the feeling came back, but stronger. The trees outside the windows turned into silhouettes. The cabin began to feel smaller, like the walls had moved in a few inches without me noticing. I went to bed earlier than usual. I didn't even try to watch anything or even scroll on my phone. I just wanted to sleep. The first dream didn't feel like a dream at first. It felt like I had woken up. I was standing outside of the cabin, barefoot. The ground was cold, damp dirt and pine needles pressing into my feet. The trees around me looked taller than they had during the day. Way too tall, like they stretched farther than they should. And that's when I first saw her, standing between the trees, watching me. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She just stood there. Her hair was long and black, hanging forward in uneven strands. Her face, well, I couldn't fully see it, but I could feel it. The anger. She wasn't loud, not explosive, just deep and old, like she'd been sitting there for a long time. I remember trying to say something, to ask who she was, but my voice didn't come out right, like it didn't belong to me. She took one step forward, and the entire forest seemed to shift with her, like the ground itself recognized her. And that's when I woke up. I was in bed. My heart was racing. The sheets were damp with sweat. The room was dark, but not completely. There was just enough light coming through the window to make out shapes. Normal shapes. A chair, the door, the wall. But the feeling didn't go away. That sense of being watched, it was still there, and it was in the room. I didn't sleep much after that. The next morning, I tried to rationalize it. I'm in a new place, at a different elevation. It must have just been a weird dream. It happens. So I made some coffee, sat on the porch, tried to take in the scenery. And the daylight seemed to help. It always does. But even then, I kept feeling like I was sitting somewhere I shouldn't be, like I'd crossed into a place that didn't belong to me. I almost left that day. I halfway packed up, even walked out to my van. But I stopped. I told myself I was being ridiculous. I paid for 2 nights, and I wasn't going to let some weird nightmare run me off. Turns out, that was a mistake. The second night was worse from the start. It didn't ease in like the first one. The feeling was already there, waiting for me. I locked the doors, checked the windows twice, left the light on in the living room, something I never do. When I finally fell asleep, it didn't feel like drifting off. It felt like being pulled. I was outside again, in the same spot, same forest, but this time, she was standing closer. I could see her face now, and God, I wished I couldn't. Her skin looked wrong, not decomposed, not decayed, but stretched, like it didn't sit right over the skeleton that was underneath. Her eyes were the worst part. They were dark and deep, like there was something behind them that didn't belong in this world. She was speaking, and I could see her mouth moving, but I couldn't understand the words. They sounded layered, like more than one voice trying to come through at the same time. I tried to step back, but I couldn't move. She lifted her hand slowly and pointed at me, and everything around us went completely silent. Even the kind of silence that has background noise. But this was different. Total and absolute silence. And that's when I felt it. Not physically, not like something touching me, but like something pressing into me. Like a weight settling behind my eyes, inside of my head. Her voice got louder. Still, I couldn't make out what she was saying, but it was stronger and sharper. And then, for just a second, I understood something. Not words, just meaning. You shouldn't be here. I woke up frantically, gasping, actually gasping, like I hadn't been breathing. The room felt wrong. Heavy, thick. The air didn't feel like air. And for a moment, I thought she was still there. I didn't turn my head. I didn't move. Because I was sure, absolutely sure, that if I looked, I'd see her standing in the corner of the room. I stayed like that for what felt like hours, just staring straight ahead, waiting for morning. The second it started getting light outside, I got up. I didn't pack properly. I didn't clean anything. I just threw my stuff together and left. I didn't look back at the cabin. Not once. And I drove for hours that day. I didn't stop until I was back on a highway with other cars around me. People, noise, anything that felt normal. This happened months ago, and I still live in the van. I still travel, and I still rent places sometimes. But every now and then, usually when I'm somewhere quiet, somewhere surrounded by trees, I still see her face. Not clearly, not fully, just enough. And sometimes, when I'm lying in bed, right on the edge of sleep, I can still hear her voice, layered, and I wonder if she stayed in that forest, or if part of her came with me. It was supposed to be a simple weekend. Nothing planned, nothing complicated, just a quick reset. We live in Knoxville, so getting to Gatlinburg is easy. Under an hour if traffic's light. That Friday morning, I woke up already burned out from the week. Work had been non-stop. The kids had been restless, and my wife and I hadn't had a real break in months. So I said we should just go. Don't overthink it. Don't plan ahead. Just said we should pack a couple bags, grab the kids, and get out of town for the weekend. We booked the cabin on Airbnb while I was drinking my coffee. 2 bedrooms, a mountain view, not too far from the main strip, but far enough to feel like you were tucked away. It looked like every other cabin out there. Wood interior, stone fireplace, big windows. The kind of place you assume is safe. The drive was easy. Our oldest, 6 years old, was excited the whole way up, asking about bears, asking if we'd see deer, asking if he could sleep in his own room. Our youngest, 2 years old, didn't care about any of it. Just sat in the back with his snacks, half asleep. Normal stuff. The cabin was at the end of a steep driveway, surrounded by trees. Not isolated enough to feel uncomfortable during the day, but definitely quiet. I remember thinking it was perfect, that it was exactly what we needed. Inside, everything was clean, warm, welcoming. That's the word I would have used at the time. We got settled, let the kids run around a bit, and then headed into town. We spent the afternoon walking through shops, grabbing lunch, just enjoying being somewhere different. It felt good, something we needed. But that's when my son said it, out of nowhere. I remember leaning down slightly and asking him what he meant. He didn't seem scared, and that's what stuck with me. He just said it like it was a normal thing, like mentioning that he saw a dog. I told him there wasn't anyone in the cabin, that it was just us, and I kept my tone light and casual. I didn't want to put anything in his head. He didn't argue. He didn't insist. just kind of nodded and went back to whatever he was doing. And that was it, at least for a while. We went back to the cabin that evening. We made dinner, watched a movie, put the kids to bed. Our son asked to sleep in the second bedroom like he'd been talking about all day, and I told him it was fine. I got him tucked in, checked the closet without making a big deal about it, and showed him it was empty. I even left the door cracked open, just in case. The first night was quiet. No issues, no sounds, nothing that felt off. If anything, it made me feel a little stupid for even thinking twice about what he'd said earlier. Saturday went the same way. More time in town, more walking around. Everything felt normal. But that evening, everything changed. It wasn't anything obvious, nothing you could point to, but it was a feeling. Like the cabin wasn't as warm as it had been the day before. Like the air had changed somehow. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to ruin the weekend. We went through the same routine: dinner, movie, then bed. Our son hesitated a little when it was time to go to his room. I remember putting a hand on his shoulder and telling him it was okay, that there was nothing in there. He nodded, went in, he laid down. I stood there for a second longer than I needed to, just to be sure, listening. Then I turned off the light and closed the door halfway. I don't know what time it was when I woke up, but I knew something wasn't right. At first, I thought it was one of the kids. Maybe our youngest had gotten up. Maybe our son was out of bed. I said quietly into the dark that if one of them was up, they needed to go back to sleep, but I didn't get a response. And then I heard it again, a sound coming from the hallway. It was a soft sound, like something brushing against the wall. I sat up, fully awake now. The house was dark except for a faint glow coming from the living room, just enough to light up and see shapes. I told myself it was nothing, that I was hearing things, but then I saw it, a shape moving across the hallway. At first, my brain tried to make it into something normal, a shadow, the light shifting, one of the kids. But it didn't move like a person. It moved too smoothly, too evenly. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and stood up. My first thought definitely wasn't ghost or spirit. It was that someone was in the cabin. I said out loud that if someone was there, they better leave now, that I was going to call the police. My voice sounded louder than I expected, too loud for the space. And then the shape stopped, right in the middle of the hallway. And that's when I realized it didn't have any detail. No face, no features, just darkness, darker than everything around it. I took a step forward, my heart pounding harder than I can really explain. And it moved again, not away from me, not towards me, just turned slowly. That was the moment everything in me shifted, from confusion to understanding. I said quietly that my wife needed to wake up, that something was wrong. I didn't take my eyes off of it, not once, and it started moving down the hallway, towards the kids' rooms. And that's when I moved, fast. I went straight past it. I tried not to touch it, and I tried not to stop. I just went for my son's door. I pushed it open, I grabbed him, but he was already awake. I told him we were all sleeping together tonight, that everything was fine. Thankfully, he didn't ask questions. He just wrapped his arms around me. I grabbed our youngest one next, then got both of them back into our room. By the time I turned back towards the hallway, it was completely gone. I checked every room, the closets, the bathroom, the living room, and I found nothing. But the feeling, it didn't leave. I brought the kids into bed with us, told my wife everything was okay, even though I didn't fully believe that myself. And I laid there the rest of the night, wide awake, listening, waiting for it to come back. Every small sound felt amplified, every shift of the house, every creak, and every now and then, it felt like something was standing just outside the door. And I swear, morning couldn't come fast enough. The second it did, I told them we were leaving, that we weren't staying another night. And although it hurt my heart, they seemed to understand. We packed fast, we didn't clean, we didn't double check anything. I loaded the car while my wife got the kids ready. And before we left, I walked back inside one last time, just to make sure we didn't forget anything. I stood in the hallway for a second, looking down towards my son's room. The door was open, and the closet door was closed, and I was sure that I'd left it open. I didn't check it. I just turned around and walked out, locked the door, got in the car, and left. We cut the weekend short, went straight home. We never talked about it much after that, not in detail, but every now and then, my son will say something small, something quiet, and I'll feel that same weight in my chest, because I still don't know if whatever was in that cabin stayed there, or if it just needed us to notice it first.